Welcome back to episode 4 of the Noel Arnason Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Canucks hiring Adam Foote, and like I said in the last podcast, we're also going to be addressing the Canucks center depth for this upcoming season and some possible trades that they could make or offer sheets that would improve their depth and overall make them a solid team to the point where you can at least make the playoffs. Because as of right now, having Elias Pettersson as your only center is not a good thing. So of course everyone saw the news that Adam Foote is now the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. I think for the team as a whole, they know who Foote is. He's been around the last couple seasons. He was brought on as an assistant for when Talkett was hired. Talkett chose him. If you watched the Canucks Insider podcast, you saw that Foote said that he did want to become a head coach at some point, and Alvin asked him, he said like once every year, once at training camp, once at the end of the year, and although like a lot of Canucks fans seem unhappy, a lot of Canucks fans wanted Malhotra as the head coach. I think Hughes did go into this, like we've talked about how, I think the rumors Hughes did get a little saying that is the guy Hughes wanted. And we've been talking about this the last couple months. If you want Hughes to re-sign in Vancouver, if he wants Adam Foote as your head coach, well, Adam Foote's going to have to be your head coach if you want him, right? But I don't know if he's the right guy, right? Like, I can only see him lasting 2 to 3 seasons max here. And if Malhotra's still available then I can see Malhotra getting the job. But Adam Foote's he almost seems like a filler coach to me, because I don't really see how he can be here long enough to do anything. I can't see this roster making a run for the Stanley Cup or competing for the next 5 to 6 years or whatever, right? Being in their cup window. We talked about when he was the head coach of the Kelowna Rockets. He only lasted 2 seasons there, and he got fired. And Kelowna was hosting the Memorial Cup that year, right? So you have to, as an assistant coach, he's a good assistant coach, but as a head coach as a whole, I'm not sure if he's ready yet. And they're talking about, is Malhotra ready or whatever? Well, is Foote ready? Because as far as we've seen, that Malhotra has the same amount of coaching experience pretty much as Foote does. Like Malhotra, he spent 7 or 8 years as an assistant coach in Toronto before this past year in Abbotsford as a head coach, right? Like, Foote was an assistant or developed players in Colorado for a while before going to Kelowna for 2 years. And then he didn't get hired after he got fired from the Rockets. And then Talkett brought him on, right? So, I think you're going to see a lot of the same systems. At least he knows the guys. He knows who he needs to push. So in that aspect, it does look, it's not like you're getting an outside hire who hasn't worked with Petey, Hughes, all these guys before. So he knows, like, on the bright side, he knows what he has to do with EP40 in order to get him going again, hopefully, because he's been around where you don't know if Malhotra or an outside hire would know what to do with Pettersson to get him going, but he talked about how Talkett was like, oh yeah, you have to come in every day with a plan for Pettersson, and so he has that understanding, right, where I don't think an outside coach, Talkett maybe wouldn't have told him that or whatnot. So in that aspect, being an inside hire is a good move, especially since everyone knows him. Hughes wanted him, and I think they will still be a tough team to play against, but I don't see the offense improving. I don't see them scoring a whole bunch more goals or this or that, right? Because he's always been a defensive coach because he was a defenseman when he played, right? Like, he wasn't on the power play a whole bunch when he was in his career with Colorado, right? Like, he was a shutdown defenseman, and I don't see their offense improving whatsoever. But as far as moving on to gain more offense, we're going to be talking about specifically probably the second line center for the Canucks, because obviously it's it's going to be Pettersson as the first line center, as much as fans may not want that to be or whatever. When you're being paid $11.6 million a season, you're going to be the first line center of the team you're on. And it looks like if Heedle's healthy, that he will probably be the third line center. Or the second and third line center will be interchangeable. Like one night the second line center can be the third line center, the other night, depending on like matchups and stuff. But the first one is the return of Bo Horvat to the Canucks. Of course, like Horvat was the captain here. They chose JT Miller over Horvat, and then they traded Horvat to the Islanders. But as a whole, Horvat is still a solid player. Like, I don't know if he would want to come back to the Canucks after how it all kind of went down, but he knows the city of Vancouver. He knows players like Pettersson, and it does make the Islanders are like in a middling team right now. They have no clear sense of direction of where they're going, especially after finding Lou Lamoriello. So in that aspect, you don't know if players like Horvat are going to be available. But as a second line center, he like we saw in the Canucks, he has a lot of scoring depth. And when you have scoring depth with Horvat as a second line center, you won't have to rely on DeBrusk and Lekkerimäki as much next season for goals. And that would be a positive thing for the Canucks. But another Islander is Matt Barzal, out of BC, right? Someone to watch for the Canucks to trade for. He only had 20 points as he only played 30 games this year. He was injured with a lower body injury, so he missed most of the season. He signed until 2031 at a $9.15 million cap hit. So it is on the more expensive side. But like I said, the Islanders are a middling team stuck in no man's land. And are they entering a rebuild? Because I think a retool, they're too far off to retool and get back into the playoffs and do some damage. So the new GM's going to want to come in and probably rebuild them. And Horvat and Barzal are available. I think the Canucks will take a shot at one of them and try to bring them back to Vancouver. But they're both 26 to 28 range in terms of how old they are. If you want younger, we're going to talk about Marco Rossi here, who's on the Minnesota Wild. 101 points in 185 career games. Coming off a 60-point season where he played all 82 games. So he is able to stay healthy for the full 82, which is something the Canucks would need. He fits the Canucks timeline really well, as Hughes and Pettersson are only a couple years older, and he has no arbitration rights and is an RFA. He's an RFA right now, so he is not signed next year to the Wild. And I think if the Wild, because Kirill Kaprizov does need to be paid this summer, if the Wild sign Kirill Kaprizov and they don't have enough money left over for Marco Rossi, the Canucks need to take a shot at this guy, because he is young. He does know how to score. He's everything, and you can still develop him as he's only 23 into the player you want him to be. And he's too good for the Canucks not to take a run. Like, even though he only had 60 points this year, he's too good for the Canucks to not take a run at him. And he could be, like, he will be your second line center of the future, considering he's only 23 years old. And since he's cracked 60 points, like, he only got 60 points, he's not going to cost a lot. So you can sign him for, if you trade his rights, so you can sign him 7 or 8 years at a reasonable price, because he hasn't got the point totals yet that maybe he will be able to get. And then Dylan Larkin is an interesting option for the Canucks to trade for. The Detroit captain is 28 years old and would provide an immediate fit for the Canucks, for of course their Stanley Cup window, as Larkin should be in his prime right now. 70 points in 82 games this year, which for Larkin, like, he's not going to get you the highest amount of points, but 70, like, that to have the longevity to play all 82 games and still get 70 points. he averaged, like, in the last 4 years he has gotten at least 69 points, or more. Um, he is one of the most he's one of the most responsible defensive centers in the league. He's 55% in the faceoff off. Of course, he's not like really in the Selke nominees, but he is. I think he is one of the better. You'll play him out there at the end of the game in order to get a faceoff win, right? Like if you're in your own end, and arguably one of the best second line centers in the league. Um, and with the Red Wings as well. Of there was that article that came out saying he wasn't really happy in Detroit concerning they didn't add anyone at the deadline, and then they missed the playoffs. And um, he's played in Detroit pretty much his entire, or he has played in Detroit his entire career, but I think they missed the playoffs pretty much for his entire career. They might have made it once or twice at the start of his career. Um, but they're also they're stuck in a similar position of um, are they what are they going to do? Are they going to retool, or are they going to rebuild? And then the Canucks would also reunite with Jared McCann of the Seattle Kraken. The former Canuck, who is 28 years old, spent his rookie season with the Canucks in 2015-2016 before bouncing around the league, making stops in Florida. As we know, he was part of the Goodbranson trade then. And then after Florida, he went to the AHL for a season or two. Then he went to Pittsburgh, couldn't find his game in Pittsburgh, and then he ended up in Seattle. And since then, he has found a home for himself in Seattle. This year, he only had 61 points in the full 82 games, and is around a 0.6 point per game player in his career. So of course he's not the high, like you're not getting him necessarily for the points, but he is a good goal scorer. In 2022-2023, he cracked 40 goals with the Seattle Kraken, but since then has only been able to reach 29 and 22 this past year. And he's on a really team-friendly deal for the Canucks if they were to trade for him at $5 million per year, and he signed until 2026-2027. Which that's a team-friendly. Like you're if they trade for Jared McCann and he's able to keep up his value of getting around 25 to 30 goals a year and 65 points, you would be able to add players at the deadline. And because like some of these guys, like we saw with Barzal at 9 million, you're not really able to add another guy, or at 5 million you can add another guy and provide more depth. But I think a good option for the Canucks is if they want to do an offer sheet. JJ Peterka, he's 23 years old. He's a center for the Buffalo Sabres, cracked a career high 68 points this year along with 27 goals. His second best, he got 28 goals last season. He is an RFA this year as well. 27 goals and 68 points on a Buffalo team, like a Sabres team, is pretty impressive, especially at that young. Because we all know the Sabres struggle every year. The last time they made the playoffs was 2012, I believe. And I think second line, like I think he may be more of a third line center. But the thing with this is the Canucks aren't actually really able to offer sheet him. They would probably have to trade for him, as the Canucks don't have any of their own third or fourth round picks this year. They just have the San Jose Sharks third round pick. Like I said, the Sabres are in an awkward position after missing the playoffs again, and they have no clear-cut direction of where they're going. And the Canucks need to take advantage of the situation, because getting like a 23-year-old center he's not signed with the Sabres yet for next season, and he's getting 27, 28 goals a year and around 70 points. Like that is great value. That if you like we've talked about the Canucks window right now, like any of these guys really, if the Canucks add any of these guys, you immediately make your roster better. but no matter who the Canucks trade for, it seems imminent that they will probably have to use their 15th overall pick this year in the draft, as none of these guys are going to be every single one of these guys is probably worth a first round pick. But as we go back, you need to show Hughes that you're interested in making the playoffs and interested in building a Stanley Cup contending team, or else he's just gonna book it for New Jersey in 2 years most likely, and it's either you over like I don't actually think that the centers in this year's UFA class are necessarily the best. So if you do, you're either gonna have to overspend in on July 1st, or you're gonna have to use your first round pick and a second maybe, depending, and a prospect, probably for a center that can provide immediate help, as the Canucks aren't looking to draft a center and for 2-3 years for him to be ready to come in, right? Like they need someone right now. But yeah, and that's all really I got today. I'll do another podcast next Saturday. As long as there is more Canucks news by then. If there's not really anything, then I'll probably make one around July 1st. I'll make one coming up, yeah, probably. Once rights are being traded for and people are being re-signed again, then I'll create a podcast on who the Canucks probably should try the target, like I did 2 weekends ago, and then after July 1st I'll make one on rating the Canucks signings. But yeah, that's all from me today. Thank you guys. Hopefully you guys are still enjoying the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, Oilers are the last Canadian team left standing in the playoffs this year, so hopefully we can see them make it to the Stanley Cup final and bring the cup back to Canada. If not, then we'll have to hope for the Canucks to do it next year if they make the playoffs. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys soon.